from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. All right, we are back, kind of. So Facebook is having difficulties tonight, and we tried to come live to talk to you guys live and take your questions, but Zoom Live was not communicating with Facebook, and we kept crashing. So best case scenario, we're going to record this Zoom meeting with just Celeste and Representative Douglas, and we're going to upload it when we're done. So if you do have questions, I know Celeste went live for a minute and told people to send PMs to the page, so I will look at that and try to ask your questions. If we don't get a PM from you and you have a question, you can always put it in the comments and we can come back and address it after this. So thanks everybody for joining us. So sorry for all of the technical difficulties. It's very frustrating, but we do have a very fun town hall tonight. I'm joined tonight by Celeste Williams, who is dropping her earbuds, I believe. We are full of fun tonight. Oh goodness.
It fell down my shirt. I'm sorry.
Oh no. Oh goodness.
What won't happen tonight?
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I can hear you just without my AirPods.
It's fine. We can hear you.
We'll
just fine.
see.
Yes.
What happens.
Tonight is a comedy of errors for sure. So Celeste Williams and her beautiful laugh, nurse practitioner and Democratic candidate for U.S. Congress. And we're joined by Republican State Representative Dan Douglas from Arkansas District 91. Now, Dan, I know I've already asked you this question, but since we're just sharing this, I'm going to ask you again, and I'm so sorry that you have to repeat yourself, but as a Republican representative,
That's all right.
thank you. As a Republican representative, I know you've had plenty of experience working across the aisle. Can you briefly tell our viewers what that experience was like in this most recent legislative session when you worked with Representative Megan Godfrey on House Bill 1552, which allowed DACA recipients to become licensed as nurses?
Okay, it's real simple. Just a good story. It was at the first of the session. I had not met Representative Godfrey previously. I went over and introduced myself to her, as I do all freshmen. And she started telling me about this DACA nurses bill. And I said, that is great. These young people, DACA students, had taken all the coursework to become licensed nurses, had passed all their tests, but were not being licensed by the state. And that's just wrong. And as bad as we need healthcare professionals, and as bad as it sounds, these kids should have been told before they went through the schooling that they wouldn't be licensed. So I said, you bet. Hey, I'll co-sponsor, and I believe I was their first co-sponsor. So it worked out right. Parties don't matter when you're doing the right thing. Sometimes people, in fact, all the time should be, people are more important than the parties, and let's work together to help people and solve problems.
Absolutely. And that's something Celeste says all the time, people over party. Celeste, would you like to respond?
So I certainly would like to just express gratitude for the passage of that bill. And as someone who has worked in healthcare my entire adult life, it is so important. And there is a real nursing shortage. And I am so glad that that was passed before all of COVID hit. And I like to think that those nurses are probably making a real difference in someone's life right now. And so thank you.
Absolutely. Celeste, when you're in Congress, how do you plan to navigate working across the aisle to get things done?
Well, you know, I think I'll kind of figure it out when I get there. But I also think that, you know, really my entire professional life thus far has sort of prepared me for that, in that, you know, I work with people from different backgrounds of all walks of life. And it is, you know, physicians, nurses, we don't ever ask what someone's political party is. We're just working together for the betterment of the patient in front of us. And certainly, you know, as a nurse practitioner and patients that I take care of, it does not matter to me what party they lean towards. It does not matter to me what their socioeconomic level is. It is doing what is right for the person in front of me. And I think it's very important to take that attitude with me, looking towards going to Washington and making sure that I never lose sight of the people here in the 3rd Congressional District and the struggles that I see in their lives, and always putting their needs ahead of my own political aspirations. And certainly I think a good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. And I don't care if that idea comes from a Republican or an independent or another Democrat. If it is going to be good for the people in the 3rd Congressional District and good for the state and good for the country, then let's work towards that. And really, I think that we really all want the same things. You know, we all want to make sure that people can get affordable health care, access to health care. We want to make sure that people can afford their medications. We want to make sure that we have a strong education system, and we want to make sure that workers are paid a fair wage. So that, and those I think are pretty basic things that we all want to accomplish.
For sure. Dan, are you with us? We lost you for a second. Can you hear us?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, good. Dan, I was just curious, was there ever a time when working across the aisle, working with your Democratic colleagues, did you ever get blowback from your Republican colleagues over that?
There were a few times whenever I had some extreme right-wing Republicans, and a few of the older ones come to me and say, you know, that's not going to help you politically. And I said, I'm not really here for popularity contest. I'm here to try to do the right thing, to try to solve problems. And it's up to me to go back and explain my voting record to my constituents, explain why I did it. You know, that's a difference in philosophy of some people that I see elected officials. They say, oh, I've got to do exactly what my constituents, what my base voted me to do, and what my base wants. I have always felt it's my job to make an informed decision, to listen to all sides of the issue, and to listen to experts and ones that have researched it more, and make that informed decision, and then go back and explain to my constituents why I voted the way I did.
Absolutely. That brings me to my next point. What you're talking about is integrity and staying true to your values. Celeste, how do you intend to keep yourself true to your core values when you're in Congress?
I think I just really don't care about party politics. And I really, I think that I face this as just doing what's right. And that I think has to be your North Star. And I think then also staying really connected to the people in the district that I am representing. And if I'm not available to hear from them, then I think that it would be easy to lose track of the fact that I view elected officials as a public servant. I don't think that I should be above them in any way. And I think maybe this is a silly answer, but I just can't imagine the obnoxiousness of thinking that, like, I think of my opponent who told me I don't represent you people. And like, I can't even wrap my head around that thinking, and that you do represent us. And it's important to hear from everybody, no matter who they are.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to keep this short because we promised Dan that we would be done at 7:30, and because of our technical difficulties, we're going over a little. Dan, there's one thing that I'm really curious about as someone who used to very often contact legislators from, when I was not working for a campaign. I'm curious the impact that has on you as a legislator when you hear from constituents and from concerned citizens who disagree with you and who want to tell you about their opinion. How do you feel as a legislator when you're contacted by those folks? And has there been a time when someone contacted you about something you thought you had your mind made up on, but they actually swayed your opinion and ultimately changed your vote?
Well, hey, I always want to hear from my constituents and hear their opinions. I know I'm not the smartest person in the world, but because I haven't had the experiences that other people have. I've had my own experiences. Other people have problems in their life and experiences that they've had that gives them a different viewpoint. And if we are so close-minded that we won't listen to our constituents, then we're not doing our job, okay, as elected officials. On the other hand, there are times that constituents won't listen to our reasons either. They're not that open-minded. So you have to be a little thick-skinned at times. But yes, there have been times. There have been times when listening to constituents has changed my viewpoint on things. One example, whenever I first came down, my first session, I had run on a pro-life campaign. And I still am pro-life, but I had a phone call from a constituent and told me about a situation where her pregnancy, she had a lethal fetal anomaly where the baby would not survive. And some of these anti-abortion bills would outlaw any chance for any type of abortion. And in this situation, it would be interfering with a doctor's advice on stopping the suffering of a baby after it was born. That changed my opinion, and that has stuck with me. She told me the story about how she was big pregnant, she decided to go on through the pregnancy, and she was big pregnant, went to the grocery store, and women patting her belly saying, "Oh, you're so blessed," when she knew her baby would die. And she said she would never go through that again after she watched her newborn baby die within 2 days of delivery and suffer during that time. So, things can change, alter your core values, not drastically, but enough to accept that there are exceptions. There are exceptions to almost anything, and we need to be open to those exceptions.
I want to just say thank you for that. Like, I think that was being open and to seeing the suffering in another human being, and for looking at the humanity within one another. And one of my favorite podcasts, they always talk about having more grace-filled conversations with nuance. And I think that is really lacking in politics today. And, as much as we like to think that everything is black and white, having worked in healthcare, and, before I did primary care, I worked in the intensive care unit and dealt with life and death situations every day. And there are some areas of gray. And I think that it is our moral responsibility to hear the suffering of others and to respond with decency and compassion. And that doesn't necessarily fit with what you think going into a situation where you can learn from someone else, and it can change your perspective. And I think that is such a powerful story. And I told you before that your speech on that issue on the floor of the House was so moving. And, I know there were a lot of women who watched that speech and wept. And I was really proud of you on that day, because I know that wasn't easy. And I think it was taking a stand that I am certain was unpopular with some, but I think that you did what was right. And I was so proud of you on that day.
Well, thank you, Celeste. It wasn't hard because it was the right thing to do in my heart, in my mind. And if we can't do what we think is the right thing to do,
They were talking
we really
about
have
leaving it
big
at one
problems
of
and big issues in this country.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, I think that's a good note to end on. I thank you so much. I can tell that you've arrived at your destination, so I don't want to keep you much longer. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, but thank you so much for being here with us.
You
Maybe
bet.
we
You
can-
bet.
Maybe we can do this again someday, and it
Yeah.
would be
Okay,
so
let's
fun.
do it.
Yeah.
Well, without the technical bugs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
Okay. I've enjoyed it so much.
Well,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you,
And
Dan.
to everybody who's watching us, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Dan, for sharing that personal story from a constituent. And I want to remind everybody, the podcast that Celeste mentioned, we're going live with the hosts of her very favorite podcast, Pantsuit Politics, next Wednesday, the 23rd at 7 p.m. So we will have plenty more grace-filled conversations on that evening. So please join us then. Thanks, everyone.